morning and or afternoon to everyone. I'd like to thank you for joining us, taking the time out of your day. I think this is a pretty interesting subject for most of you. I'm assuming if you're here, you have one of our systems, and perhaps you've let it fall a little bit behind in terms of the level of software it's running. And so we're going to spend some time talking about a couple of things. One of the main things is letting you know what exactly you can get moving forward. And there's some documents we'll talk about and things like that to help you. And then we'll talk a little bit about the reasons why you might want to upgrade. As a software company, we spend a large amount of time monitoring your feedback and the input from the kind of the market that we're in. And based on that feedback, we try and keep our product current, which means adding new features and functionality, which means generating more code. And while we're very proud of the fact that we have not taken features out of the product, we've managed to keep all the legacy features in because people find those useful still. There still is an issue of how much software one company can support. So if you look at our end of support policy, which everyone has to have, and we'll talk about end of support in two areas, our end of support, but also equally important is the end of support of all those pieces of software needed to make CX run, such as operating systems and drivers and things like that. But from our software point of view, this is the current chart that shows, as you can see, the CallXpress 7 series, except for 792, is out of support and has been out of support for a while. And even the 792, which was the final version we did, as we capped that software stream off, that goes out of service before the end of the year, as does CX.8.0, and following about this time next year, even CX8.1 goes out of support. So what it means if it goes out of support is you're just not eligible to get any kind of support on it. And even if you have a problem and you know that there's a bug in the software, we actually aren't going to be fixing those when they're out of support. And it makes sense. This list is very small compared to all of the software we've ever released, so it's not reasonable to maintain a software stream that old. And equally important are the pieces that we'll look at in terms of the operating systems and things like that. So one way or another, it really is a requirement for any company to keep within that current software window. So what we're going to talk about today is how we can make that process of moving forward less painful. It'll always be a little painful. There's always an upgrade to be run and a little tiny disruption of service, but we think we can offset any of that with the value you get as you look at the newer versions of software. So our current version of software, CXE 8.5 Software Update 3 that is out, has a lot of features. If any of you were on the 7 series or even the early 8 series, you'll find there's an incredible amount of value in that new software. And a lot of that software, that new functionality, you get with an upgrade without buying any new licenses or anything else. Now, some of the new things are licensed as well. We'll talk about some of those. But the kind of things you'll find in the new software, I think, more than offset the disruption of doing an upgrade. So we're going to talk a little bit about the Atom feature set, which is one of the great things you can add for your mobile workers that probably on its own offsets any interruption in business. We'll talk about virtualization for those of you that are in that world. We'll talk about high availability. And then we'll talk, of course, about the operating systems and what's going on out in your enterprise as well. Things like, Windows XP is out of support now, so you're looking at moving forward onto new versions of operating systems and new versions of Office and things like that. So you'll want to be comfortable that our new version can support that, because certainly our very, very old versions of software don't support those products because those products weren't around when we built them. We'll look at scalability in the new architecture. If you're moving from 7 to 8, the list of things you get is almost staggering. We have documents we can give you to let you look through them. We certainly can't cover them all today. But one of them is scalability and high availability. And we'll talk a little bit about security, because that is always a driving force in the enterprise with any type of solution. So one of the big changes when we went from the 7.x series of software to the 8.x was the architecture itself, the core architecture. This was not a product reset. This was not a rip and replace, you have to buy a new product kind of approach. But what we did was took the software that had been, the software for the product since 1982 when we started. We've been developing it over those years. And there's a couple of things we had to do. We knew we had to get a good high availability, a good redundancy story. Particularly as we grew into larger enterprises, that was a requirement. We needed scalability because our system prior to that in the or in the 7.x series, was only 192 ports. And while a lot of our customers started at 48 ports, over the years they'd grown and grown and grown, and that just wasn't enough. And then lastly, a lot of our customers went through a data infrastructure consolidation, where they took their groupware, their Exchange, their back-end data systems, and figured out that by centralizing them, because all their systems are connected with data networks, they made things work smoother, they lowered their cost of ownership, their upgrade costs, etc., and now they're ready to do that in the voice world. So we needed an architecture that would lend itself to consolidation as well. So we took and broke the software apart into two pieces, something called a call server and something called a system server. Now, I don't want people to be concerned and thinking, oh no, when I do an update, now I need to have more than one server. That is not the case. You can still install an entire CXE system on a single server without any problems at all. And we'll talk about that a couple of slides down. But you can also take this architecture and do some very interesting things for a couple of reasons. I talked about consolidation. So if you have multiple sites today with multiple telephony systems and multiple voicemail call processing systems, you can replace all those systems at those different sites with elements from a single CXE server and have a completely centralized environment. And you'll gain the cost of ownership advantages, the simplification of maintenance advantages, and your users will benefit from having a single system throughout your entire enterprise. And because we're deploying that on multiple servers, we now get a great high availability story. If you look at this picture, this is a fairly simple customer site where we put a couple of our call servers on each site. Two call servers means if one call server fails, the other one keeps working. So there's some redundancy built into that. And then same with the other side. I just, for this chose to put two call servers over in that. And then we have an interesting story here with system servers. I could certainly have one system server. Now, if that system server failed, those call servers are highly survivable. They'll continue to answer calls, take messages, run all of the applications. But it turns out that the messages are stored on the system server, so there won't be access to messages when a system server fails. And to overcome that, we offer dual system servers on a single site running in active-passive mode. So we have two servers. The active server shown here with the blue label is actually talking to the call servers and doing all the work. But at the same time, every time it writes something to its hard drive, it echoes that out to the hard drive on the passive system, the one shown in red. And that is now, within a millisecond or so, an exact copy of the active system server. So if the active system server fails, the passive one switches over automatically on its own, establishes communications with all the call servers, and everything keeps right on working. You don't even lose calls in progress. So now with those four servers shown in that one site, we have full redundancy, full high availability, automatic failover. So we have that enterprise level of resiliency that a lot of companies are looking for. And then if we kind of think of the other site that's shown there, we could just have call servers out at that site, or we could actually put a separate system server out there. Now this can be the second system server or the third system server, and it's configured the same way. It's automatically being updated. And the difference here is if I lose my entire Site 1, let's say a backhoe comes through and takes out my entrance cable to my building, and they kind of jokingly tell me it's going to be 20 to 30 days before they can get that pulled back in again, you need a solution. You need to be able to be back in business a lot quicker than that. So what you do is simply promote that off-site system server. It would contact any call servers it could find, and you'd be back in business. So full geo-redundancy, either with 2 or 3 servers. So that's the kind of hardware changes that we put in when we went from the 7X services. If we look at talking about kind of all the options we have, this is really a matter of matching what your requirements are. We can have a single system with everything on it. We can have a system server and 2 call servers for a great amount of high availability to single site. We can add multiple system servers in various connections. So we can match whatever your requirements are from a single physical server, which still can have RAID and all those things that make it highly reliable, right down to where there is no single site or component that can fail and take you out of business. And the toolkit we have to do that is pretty impressive. We can have up to 20 call servers. Now this graphic is just kind of a simple depiction of a customer that has 10 sites. We put 2 call servers out at each site so they have redundancy on a site-wide basis, plus that entire 10 location network is serviced by a single CXE system. And then down below you see we have options for how many system servers we have. Today we support 500 ports, which although we don't license voicemail users, we're very comfortable with the number 40,000. We have people with more than that, but that's kind of a good guideline for what you can get onto 500 ports today. 20 call servers, 3 system servers. Now below that, the call server specs that it shows there are actually the same specs for a single machine. So if you have a single, let's say you have a 7.9 server today, and you simply want to do a like-for-like upgrade, that's no problem at all. As long as you have less than 144 ports if you're not going to use the IVR, or 96 ports or less if you are going to use the IVR, the upgrade really is, depending on the server and the hardware you have, just a matter of putting the DVD in and upgrading to the new software. So there's no requirement to go to multiple components. But it might be something you want to look at depending on what your environment looks like. And then the last piece we always talk about, if you're talking about resiliency and redundancy, of course, is virtualization. So every piece of the CXE system, as of 8.2, I believe, was the final piece, is now not only capable of running on VMware, but it's certified. We actually took all of this into the lab at VMware, and it carries the VMware Ready certification. So you now can basically virtualize your entire system. Now, there is one caveat to that I always add, which is some older telephone system integrations actually require cards. So you might have cards in your CX system today, in your CallXpress. And if you do, those cards can't be virtualized. So we'd have to look at your individual hardware needs and talk about how we would virtualize you. It's possible to take those cards out and use external media gateways if you really are driven to have everything virtualized. It's possible your phone system would serve now to host an IP, a SIP integration perhaps. So there are things we would talk about it, but from a virtualization point of view, we are ready to go. Now that's good from a hardware and redundancy and growth perspective. But one of the things that I think will help you when you look at moving forward to a new version of software are the features we've added from release to release. And the last big release, in the 8.5 release, we added what we call ATOM, the AVST Total Office Manager. And this is, for those of you that already have our system, there's a little confusion when people start looking at ATOM because it has things that you already have. You might already have unified messaging. You might already have multilingual on the system. But it adds additional things to that and packages it all together. And we now have this ATOM license for mobile users that gives them everything. And it's a very impressive feature set. If you look at ATOM and what it does, and this ATOM is geared for the mobile user. We have a lot of great features for the user that stays in the building and at their desk, but ATOM is amazing. It has location-based services, and it uses the presence on your site for various things. The speech recognition engine is now multilingual, so you can have multiple recognition engines. We still have unified messaging, although we've extended the functionality, but we have a lot of context-aware unified communications that lets us do very new and interesting things. We're going to look real quickly at some ATOM features. We have a whole webinar that's just ATOM, but I want you to get a feeling for the kind of things you'll get if you look at upgrading your system. So there's a number of messages with ATOM, and one of them is ATOM goes mobile when you do. That's the real story for ATOM. We have a mobile client now. We have both an iOS or Apple mobile client and an Android mobile client that adds all kinds of functionality. We'll look a little bit of that. But that mobile client plus the speech interface gives you unified messaging, gives you all sorts of ability if you're not at your desk. And it supports your clients, all the different clients you might have. Sometimes I'm sitting at a Starbucks in the afternoon reading technical documents, and I'm reading them on my iPad, and my iPad is actually my CallXpress device at that point. I'm going to get pop-ups on that telling me people are trying to call me. It's just we're able to integrate into your environment. So ATOM's a very powerful tool. A lot of it comes from the mobile client. Like I said, we have 2 versions of the mobile client. The mobile client does all sorts of things. We're going to look at a few of them a few slides down. But like I said, if you have an interest in increasing your unified communications capability for your mobile workers, then be on the lookout for one of our ATOM webinars. Or call us up. We're happy to do something one-on-one as well. In the area of mobility, we've also found that administrators have some real challenges. We have a great admin client, 32-bit Windows client, very easy to use, very powerful. But there are times when you're not at that machine, when you're halfway across campus and the dean calls and he's locked himself out of the mailbox and he can't remember his security code, and you either have to run somewhere where that client is, Or now, if you have an 8.5 upgrade, you're going to be able to take any mobile device and get in and unlock their mailbox. We have a small footprint admin client. Now, it's a very limited admin client compared to our basic admin client, but it does the important things. It does locking and unlocking mailboxes, changing security codes, going into answer mode override for inclement weather days, the kind of things you're most likely to have to do when you're not conveniently in front of your machine. Another message from Adam is it provides a personal touch to important callers. One of the experiences that those of us who use Adam have all the time that just, usually blows away people if they happen to be sitting there and listening to it happen is we do things with calls that are completely unique in the industry. One of the things we realized a long time ago is people like email better than voicemail, and they like email much better than a phone call. And the reason is control. When you open up your email system and there's 3 messages there, and one of them is from a customer that's very hard to deal with, and one of them a very important call or a message that you have to resolve, and one is not that important, you get to choose. Email is very visual, and you can pick which one you're ready to handle, which one you want to handle. But when your phone rings, your choice is to answer it or not. And once you answer it, you're committed. You can't really say, oh, it's you. What I'm doing now is more important than your issue, so you have to call me back. We'd all like to say that, but very few of us actually get to do that. But with our system, the experience is completely different because we're going to give you information about that call before you commit to taking it. So if I'm on the phone, I'm driving into work in the morning, and somebody calls me, I'll get a tone in my ear. It'll say you have an incoming call from Ann Rude. Say accept, reject, acknowledge, or transfer. Accept connects me to the call. That makes sense. Reject sends it to voicemail. But that third one, acknowledge, is really unique. If I say acknowledge, it'll say record a brief message. And I'll say, Ann, listen, I'm just pulling into the parking lot. I don't want to have this call on my mobile phone here, so I'll see you in the office in about 5 minutes. Then I can hang up and go on with what I'm doing. And here's that message, and I've set a callback expectation, a personal message. No one else can do that, and you'll be surprised how that changes how you deal with phone calls. And we had that for quite a while, and the one complaint we had about it was, I spend all my time in meetings. I really can't answer that call in a meeting and do that. So we heard you. So in our mobile client, we now do call screening to the data channel of your device. If you have our mobile client loaded, when you get a call, you'll get a pop-up, and it will basically show you have an incoming call. If it's from someone in your contacts or someone on the system, it'll show who it is. So it'll say, incoming call from John Reed at Dynacom, or whatever your contact entry says. And then I have those same choices. I can record an acknowledged message. I can transfer that call to someone else without committing it and taking the call. And of course, even recording an acknowledgement message by pressing the button and doing that on my mobile device is a little disruptive. So we also have the ability to do silent acknowledge. So if I'm sitting in a meeting and someone calls, I can look down, see who it is, hit a button, and they'll hear, Neil Butler was unable to take your call, but we'll call you back in 15 minutes. So the call management piece becomes sort of the new icing on the software in terms of the great stuff you get. And it goes beyond just this kind of interaction we're showing here, and it comes down into the area we call context. People won't work very hard to maintain their voicemail, mailbox, and greetings. It's just a fact of life. But there's a lot of information out there that we can use within our application to make that process better. So Adam has 2 main goals. One is connect more calls. I think everyone would agree a connected call is better than a message. And the second one is make the caller experience better. How many of you have called to hear, hi, this is Neil, sorry I'm not here, leave me a message to tone, I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Well, that doesn't tell you anything. But within the enterprise, our system can actually take advantage of things. One of them would be the calendar. If you have Exchange or Office 365 or Google Apps, we can actually set up rules that say, when someone calls me and I'm in a calendar scheduled event, tell them that. So it would say Neil Butler is currently in a meeting and will be back at 11 a.m. Now, it might not tell them when I'm back. That's an option that users can, decide on how they want to have that go. But that's a much better message than just the generic greeting. And as well as reading the calendar, if you're an Office communicator or a link user, we can also use your present status to determine how to route that call, where to send that call, and what else you want to do. Now, if you think of it, in my case, I wouldn't play that greeting there. What I would do is pop up something when I'm in a meeting, then do that little pop-up so that I can see who's calling before I decide how I want to route that call. So a lot of choices all tied together with what's inside the enterprise. Probably the most impressive thing on our mobile client that people have a lot of interest in when they hear about it. We talk about connecting to Link, your presence engine. Well, presence is kind of a glorified term for Link. And Link's great, instant message. There's a lot of things it does, but it's really not that much of a presence engine in the sense that it knows whether you're at your desk or not, but if you're not, it has no clue where you are. Whereas our app actually knows where you are. And the way we do that is by using the technology that's found in every mobile phone. Inside that phone is the information on your physical location. It's not that somebody's watching you. It's that it has to know where all those cell towers are. It has to make decisions as you're driving down the road. What 3 cell towers am I close to? Which one has the strongest signal? Which one the signal is getting stronger, so I need to switch to that one when I reach a point? Well, all that equates to actually latitude and longitude coordinates with inside your phone. So as a user, I can build recognizable locations. I go into our office here in Bothell, where the engineering office is. I build a location. I go at home and build a location. And now the system really knows how to handle my calls. If a call comes in, I have a rule that says send it to my desk. If I don't answer, send it to my home office. If I don't answer, send it to my mobile phone. But what actually happens when a call comes in, it says, oh, this call's supposed to go to his desk. Well, is he there? And it pings my phone, and the location says, no, he's not in the Bothell office. So it goes back, and the rule says, well, is he at home? Pings my location. It says, no, he's not at home either. Okay, then I'm just going to send this call directly to the mobile device, because that's what makes sense. So location-based services that once the user builds these couple of locations are fully automatic. Just an incredible increase in the chances of you answering that call and taking that call, and then great tools when you answer it to decide whether you really want to talk to that person or not. A good part of what we do has to do with that context-type solution. Our interoperability is recognized in the industry as the best in every category. We connect to more phone systems than anyone does. We connect to more email and groupware packages than anyone does. We connect to just about everything in your enterprise, right down to our custom tools that can let us build business process apps that connect to your back-end tools as well. So as you look at, do I want to upgrade the CX system, keep in mind going forward as your enterprise changes, this is going to be the horse to ride. This is going to be the one you want to make sure you have as the rest of your world keeps getting more and more complicated. And the great thing about the product is you put in now what you want today, and then you add what you need or change what you need going down the road. Whether it's infrastructure, your telephony system, the kind of applications you want, we are very much a mix and match type of application. So today you can just do an upgrade to CXE version 5 and have exactly what you have today. No training for the user, same prompts, same functionality, nothing changes. And then you can start looking at what else on that list of features. And this, by the way, we haven't even made a dent in the list of features. If you're really interested in features, you can actually call us or get in touch with us through email, and we will send you the software history guide that will show you from, I think it starts at 6.0. It'll show you every feature that we've added to the system. So you can kind of drop in at where you are at. Let's say you're a 7.2 customer. Drop in at 7.2 and then just read forward, and it'll show you all the new things you have access to. Some will come for free with a software upgrade. Some might require licensing. But that's a good starting point for you to decide. So while hopefully what you'll find after this webinar and as you look at some of that documentation is enough to make you comfortable that you want to move ahead. But we always like to add that extra little bit of incentive. So marketing has put together the JUMP program. Just upgrade my product. Jump to 8.5. So this is a little candy we dangle to help you move maybe a little faster, to make sure that you see the value in bringing your software up to speed. So JUMP offers incentives for customers depending on what type of customer you are. If you're under XpressCare and you're ready to do the upgrade, then when you do the upgrade, now the upgrade, if you're under XpressCare, the upgrade itself doesn't cost you anything other than perhaps maintenance time for somebody to do it, but the software itself doesn't. But when you do that upgrade, as part of this program, you can pick one of the following incentives. If you're interested in mobility, you can get 50% off a 50-user license pack for Atom. That gives you the personal assistant, the unified messaging, the speech rec interface, all of that at 50% off. Or if at the same time you're looking at doing this, you're ready to move perhaps to an IP integration because what you want to do is virtualize everything, then you can take 50% off the SIP integration software and port licenses up to the first 48 SIP and IP ports. Both of those are substantial financial incentives that just sweeten the pot after the actual other feature type gains hopefully push you in that right direction. Now, if you're one of those customers that have let XpressCare expire, we have something for you as well. If you upgrade your XpressCare and you purchase 2 or more years, we will actually waive the reinstatement fee. And you can see the charges down there based on how big you are. That can also be a significant amount of money. So our goal here is to make you want to upgrade this software. I think you can see the value in it. Hopefully these programs will kind of get this pushed a little towards the top of the list. I know you have lots of things on the list you have to do, but what we're hoping to is move ours up a little bit using these incentives. So this is the place where you get to ask us some questions.
Thanks, Neil. So I will add one thing on the promo. We will go ahead and when we send out the slides after we conclude later today, I will go ahead and include a link to the promo PDF, which has a little bit more details, and you can certainly follow up with your sales reps as well if you have questions about that. Okay,
and can we add a link to the software release history?
Oh, the software release history. Yeah, that's a great idea. I'll
yeah, because that'll answer a lot of their questions.
Okay, great. So just as a reminder, if you have a question, you can type it in. We'll go ahead and get going on the couple of questions that have come in so far. First one is, as an administrator, I can't give access to my server to reset voicemail boxes. Is there an app that I can deploy so my help desk can reset boxes and not just passwords? You need to take that one offline.
No, I'm pretty sure what they're saying is for network security reasons, even though they could load the admin client, they can't run it and connect to their server. And I think you'd probably find, I mean, there's still credentials required for our web app as well, so we'd want to make sure that that's even available to you. But no, the functionality of web, when you say reset a mailbox, we'd have to define that a little more. But what that tool really does is it'll reset a password, it'll enable a mailbox, it'll disable a mailbox, it'll change the name, a few things like that, but it won't do a complete reset. If you have to do a reset, it has to be done from the admin client.
Okay. Next question. Does version 8.5 still require us to have a USB dongle for licensing?
Yeah, sort of. Wait, no. I'm required to say yes. But here's the thing. 8.6, which is our next software release, will be getting rid of that requirement. As of 8.6, a dongle will not be required. We'll use the kind of more acceptable phone home security method, where as long as CX is on a network when you install it, it can check your license validity by connecting out to one of our websites and enable your software. And if you don't have it on the network in such a way that's possible, we'll still allow a dongle. So 8.6, I'm guessing is September timeframe or so. So just be a little patient, and we'll get to the point where we don't need the dongles anymore.
Okay, great. Next question. I think this came in during the Adams segment. Is the message on your phone? Oh, sorry. Is the message on your phone, or is it just synced to the server?
So if you're using our mobile client and you're looking at your voicemail messages, what you're seeing is your message headers, and those get pulled down. So when I open up the client and hit voice messages, we actually use the data channel. Those data channels on these new phones are great because they're very fast and responsive. We pull that list of messages, you see them. When you click play a message, we stream that message down that same data channel, play it over the phone. We never store anything except the app itself on that phone.
Okay, great. Next question. For a non-IP-based phone system, what is a good way to plan for disaster recovery?
Yeah, so it gets a little more tricky depending on what kind of integration you're using. So there's two pieces to that, of course. There's the phone side itself, which we can talk a little bit about, and then there's our side. With our side, the general concept is you're going to have a hunt group, split that hunt group out. So let's say you have an older phone system, you're using digital set emulation, where we're pretending to be phone sets, because that's how we have to do integration to the older phone system. Rather than put 16 ports on a call server, take and put 8 ports on 2 different call servers, and just take that hunt group that you built on the phone system and split it across the 2. So the basic start for any kind of high availability is always redundancy. That's the first and easiest thing to do. And in general, most of those old integrations will support connections to two sources from a single hunt group. So if you have something a little larger and you're using QSIG trunks, same thing. Instead of a 30-channel QSIG trunk, put in 2 channels and put 16 on one and 14 on the other. Now, when you look at the phone system redundancy itself, that gets trickier, and that's really probably will want to have an offline call, because there are things like if you're using digital set emulation and the card in the switch fails that has all those sets on it, then you're going to lose everything. So I would start by, in the switch, the same thing, split those ports across multiple connections and cards on your PBX side. And it's almost going to be a by-system type discussion, but generally you can get everything redundant. The one thing that that really kind of is the limiter no one's ever been able to get around is if you have an older phone system that uses a data link for integration, or Centrex is very similar. So I can have my ports split around, but I have this one data link that connects to say, oh, that call that's coming in on port 6, here's who it's from. We need that information. So making that data link redundant on the phone side is usually not possible. So then we talk about a backup plan that if the link, if the link doesn't work, that we run calls to a menu that asks them to, use a dial by name directory, that kind of thing. It gets a little less clean and elegant. But if you'd like to have an offline conversation with your basic setup where we can go through that, I would be happy to do that.
Okay, great. Neil, I can send you the contact info for the individual who asked that question. Next, we are currently running version 7.71. Will all mailbox settings and messages be saved when upgrading to version 8.5?
Yes. What I don't know off the top of my head is if that's a 2-step migration. If you go back far enough, you have to migrate like from 7.1 to, and I'm not saying you have to do this, but if you go back far enough, you'd migrate from the old version to 7.9 and then 7.9 up. But everything will carry forward. It's just a matter of it might be a 2-step migration, but I don't think it is from 7.1. And once again, if you send me that person's contact info, I will get a valid and correct answer for his specific circumstance.
Okay, great.
Once again, like I always do, I want to say thank you for coming. It's hard for you to carve time out of your day. Hopefully, I know from the names, from seeing the repeat names, I know that some of you find enough value to come back when the topic is right. And if you can give us feedback in terms of what kind of topics you would like to see and how we're doing, do you need more detail, do you need less detail? I guarantee you all of that is taken into account as we keep this program going. So thank you very much.
All right, great. Have a great day, everyone.